The Titanic was one of the biggest tragedies in the history of the sea.
The Titanic was owned by the White Star Line. The captain of the Titanic was Edward John Smith, and it was designed by Thomas Andrews, a shipbuilder. Aboard the Titanic were 2,500 passengers and 860 crew members. Passengers included first class, second class, and third class who stayed in the bottom of the ship with the luggage. The third class tickets cost between £3 and £8. There were 16 lifeboats and 4 collapsibles that in total could hold 1,178 people. It had 4 smokestacks and cost £1,500,000 or $2,409,150 US.
The Titanic was 882 and 3/4 feet long. It was 92.5 feet wide, 175 feet high, and weighed approximately 46,000 tons. Edward John Smith was the captain of the Titanic. He died when he was 62 years old while the ship sank. He was an English Naval Reserve officer and sea captain. The builder of the Titanic, Thomas Andrews, also died while on the ship. He was an Irish businessman and shipbuilder, and the naval architect in charge of the plans for the Titanic.
The Titanic took off from Southampton in England on April 10, 1912, and hit the iceberg on April 15, 1912. Throughout the day, the Titanic received warnings from other ships about the obstacle ahead. At 11:40 p.m., Frederick Fleet, the lookout, spotted an iceberg right in the Titanic's path. First Officer William Murdoch then ordered the ship to be steered out of the way and in reverse, but it was too late. Women and children were supposed to be first on the lifeboats, and many were only half full.
The Californian was close enough to see the Titanic's call for help, but did not come to the rescue. At 2:20 a.m., the Titanic sunk fully. About 2 hours later, the Carpathia reached the survivors. 105 people were saved, and 1,523 died. On April 18, 1912, the Carpathia reached New York with the survivors.
Molly Brown was a survivor of the Titanic. She was an American socialite, philanthropist, and activist. She is nicknamed the Unsinkable Molly Brown because she returned from her lifeboat after being saved from the Titanic to look for others. She was put onto lifeboat number 6 when the Titanic began to sink, but is called the Unsinkable Molly Brown because she helped evacuate the Titanic and took an oar from her lifeboat so they would have no choice but to go back. She is considered a hero for her actions involving the Titanic.
There were many different types of people to survive the Titanic, such as John Jacob Astor IV, who was the richest man to sink with the Titanic, Isidor Straus, who served as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives, and many third-class riders who worked as blacksmiths and farmers. Although the Titanic is still sitting at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean today, artifacts from the Titanic are still being found. These artifacts are some of the most desirable collectibles out there. Items such as old postcards, menus, chairs, lifeboat flags, toiletries, perfumes, and shoes have been found. Most of these artifacts can be found at the National Maritime Museum, but others have been sold for very high prices. The Titanic is easily still one of the biggest tragedies to happen in the world. While it took many lives, it still had a huge impact on the ones it didn't take. People everywhere were affected by this tragedy, and it will never be forgotten.